I guess this is a special update and study session, and I guess we'll just call this session to order. Yeah, well, this is not really the meeting. We'll do that in the board meeting, right? Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Ready to start then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well then.
Great. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and begin our study session. I think most people are aware that this is something that the board does from time to time, where we have a study session. We're planning to go from 5 to 6:30. There'll be no action taken tonight on this issue. It's an opportunity for the board to hear an update regarding the Healthy Living Campus, also an opportunity for the community to provide input, and then an opportunity for the board to have a discussion. But again, no action will be taken tonight, and we're going to move kind of quickly through the first part so that we give lots of opportunity for people to share and give public input if they would like to. So just to give you kind of a sense of where we are, where we've come from, and where we're going, tonight we're really going to be talking about the what, if you will. We're going to be looking at the master plan. This is something that we've shared with our community working group, which is a group of about 15 people that have been helping us with this project. We'll have the study session tonight. And then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the how in February, where we will be discussing finances, timing, phasing, that sort of thing. We'll be doing that in February. There'll be a study session again to discuss that. And then perhaps in March, the board will consider whether or not it wants to move forward with an environmental impact review process. That'll be after more community input and more open houses in March and maybe late February. And I think as most of you know me, I'm Tom Backley. I'm the CEO of the Health District. I just kind of launched right in because I'm excited to show this to you, and also want to make sure we have plenty of time for you to comment. So this is our current campus. I think as most people know, we have 11 acres. Our building is about 63 years old. It was a former hospital, and it does not currently meet tenant needs within the hospital, nor does it meet seismic requirements, and it is in need of a seismic upgrade. And so we have about a 1 to 5 year window to address this building and determine a course for not only this building, but a course for the health district in general. And so we've done this before, but wanted to review this quickly. This is an overview of our financial outlook. So you can see, of course, that the green is total revenues. Red includes operating expenses, which also includes maintenance and capital as well as operating. And so you can see that we've always matched our revenues and expenses, and what we're projecting starting in about 2021 is those lines are going to start to cross, largely due to the increase in capital and maintenance costs of this building. And then we are also anticipating, you see the revenue line dropping, we're anticipating that we'll lose some lease revenue from this building and lose some tenants. We've been unable to rent out the third floor of this building, as many people know, and we have some leases coming up in around 2024, and so that's why we're seeing the revenue drop there. Those of you, I see many, like Pat Dreisler and Pat Oss and others that have been here since we made the conversion from the hospital, and so you'll see the fund balance there is around 26 million. That's something that was related to the conversion from the hospital. We've been able to maintain that, but if we don't address the prior slide, we're going to start to impact that fund balance. So this shows what happens if we do nothing over the next 5 years. We'll be okay. We'll have a little window there is what this shows, but then you can see the decrease happening in our fund balance. So we wanted to just talk briefly about why this matters and how it connects to the mission of the health district. As you know, we have over 40 community health programs dealing with childhood obesity, seniors, health and fitness, Blue Zones Project, and a wide range of programs that we're able to fund through, among other things, revenue that we receive from this building. Another reason why it matters is seismic issues. This is something that the district has been dealing with for a long time. It was a big part of the discussion when we converted from a hospital and closed the hospital in the 90s. So currently, if we were to walk in to the building department with the blueprints for this building, it would not meet seismic standards, seismic code of Redondo Beach. There's no requirement that it be addressed, but the board and the community had a presentation from seismic experts, and the board was of the mind that this is something as a health district that we should address and come up with a plan, even though we're not absolutely required to seismically address the building. Uh-oh. Another reason why it matters is that we currently, with our partnerships, you see with the school district and the cities, as well as some of the things that we're doing with the Healthy Mind Initiative, we have the Surgeon General here. We've created, through our programs, a center of excellence regarding community health, and we want to establish that with our building. And so that's another reason why this project matters. So one of the things that we've been talking about doing is modernizing the campus to meet our community needs. Here we are, we're in the basement of a hospital that was built 63 years ago, and so there's been lots of discussion about, does it currently reflect who we are and meet our needs, and has this building kept up with our evolution that has really happened since really, 1990, and so has this building kept up with that? And so the question is, do we want to modernize this campus to be a place where people come to be well and practice community health and preventative health? So why the BCHD mission matters and our contribution to the community. We just have a couple of, these are obviously some of our partners here. This is the school district and Dr. Stephen Keller, the superintendent. So what he says is, what makes our school district special, we have BCHD. No other community has an organization so focused on students' health and integrated into the very fabric of programs and academics. And so what have we been able to accomplish with that partnership? Of course, the reduction in childhood obesity in Redondo, which is something that people are really standing up and looking at a time when childhood obesity is on the rise. In Redondo, we've been able to crack the code, if you will, and show a way forward as a community in reducing childhood obesity. This is from Frank, one of our former clients. It said, "They are concerned about me, offer support, and will try to find anything that can help meet my needs. I'm very pleased with the level of service I've received from BCHD." So these are just some quick numbers and statistics related to our work with older adults. You can see that we have over 1,000 care management visits with our 5 licensed social workers. Is something that we do on a daily basis. And then, of course, we had the former U.S. Surgeon General here who said, "We tend to believe that America's health problems are too big and intractable. You have proven that communities can take charge and reverse the trend." So these are all things that we should be very proud of as a community, and we certainly are at the Health District, and we want our building to reflect, and our campus to reflect these accomplishments. So these are some of the improvements that we've seen, the measurable health improvements that we've seen, with smoking on the decline by 36%, and above normal weight adults down 25%. This is from Gallup through our partnership with the Blue Zones Project and Share Care. And they are here tonight. They happen to be in town, and so they're here as well, and you'll get a chance to see them at the break. And of course, this is something that Gallup computed, that if people weren't experiencing those health improvements that we just saw, they would have spent $21 million in direct medical expenses. And so this is the benefit that we're seeing. This is why this matters, and this is why where we're moving forward needs to connect back to our mission and our vision. So these are the pillars that the board and the community have adopted that really guide how we move forward with this project. They've gone through revision, they've been looked at, and so we use these to check, okay, are we on track, and are we moving where we need to be? So quickly, just looking at milestones, more in the working group. We developed the initial concept over a year ago, had a community open house about that. Then in January, received direction from the board to take a broader view, not just limited to that concept plan or that site plan. We then focused on 3 areas that we're hearing a lot about: intergenerational issues, creating a sense of place or gathering spaces to connect to the community, and this concept of a center of excellence, a place where people could come to be well. We were hearing this from the community, so we hosted more open houses about that to get more input into our master plan and our concept. We analyzed the public input. Here we are today, presenting the master plan. We'll do the financials next month, open houses, and then perhaps begin the environmental impact review process in March, the end of March. We'll see how it goes. It depends on the input and where the community is and where the board is on that. So we want to talk now and get right into the plan. And so here's the current campus today. So where we're hovering, if you will, is on Prospect. Then you see Barrel and the brown square there on Barrel and Flagler up at the top of the screen. We own that parcel as well. And then you have Torrance there to the east. So this was the site plan that we presented a little over a year ago, and we received lots of feedback. We made some tweaks to this to try to minimize the impact to the adjacent neighbors on Diamond. We made some changes there. I'm going to try to use the, oops, look out. Well, I tried to get fancy with the laser. There, I got it. So we changed the entrance here so that it was not impacting these neighbors. But we were hearing concerns about building heights, concerns about density, traffic. Yes, we got a little more green space, but who's going to use it? And is it really something that the community can use? Are we really creating gathering spaces, and are we really connecting to the community was something that we heard, that this site plan wasn't optimally addressing those pillars that we saw before, the policy guidelines. So we worked on some scenarios. We thought, okay, what can we connect a little better here? And what we kept trying to do is what we did in the previous drawing, which was tried to do everything. The medical office building use that's already happening in this building, plus residential care for the elderly, plus trying to create green space and places where people could gather. And we kept running into the same issues with these heights, these big building heights. You know, even if we open things up and try to do different things, because we were trying to do everything, we were having these impacts that were driving traffic, that was driving parking, that was driving density and height, and not meeting these goals that we were hearing from the community. So we tried different ideas. We heard you, as you know, some people, some of the comments we heard is, why does it need to be here? You know, we said, well, let's look at that. You know, when you look at the whole district, we're located here. You know, could it have been scooched up here, you know, in the 1950s? Perhaps, but when I look at this, I see a location that's fairly central within the entire district. And as you'll see in a moment, in a real key place here for Redondo, kind of at the choke point between South Redondo and North Redondo. This gives you just an idea of where our other facilities are. We have Adventureplex up in Manhattan Beach. Here's the Healthy Living Campus here. Here's where we happen to be with our lease right now with the school district. We own this property here, which is a child care facility. And then we also own this building where South Bay Family Health Care Center is. That's a federally qualified health center, and so that's a big part of our mission as well, and so we own that. So when we look at the map, we are kind of spread out throughout the district, and we wanted to check and see, all right, is this really a place where our campus should be located? So this is the current campus, and so we decided, okay, what happens if we just take more of a clean slate view of it? When you look at our leases and sort of constraints that we currently have, there's a land lease with this building here where Providence is. This is Prospect, Barrel. So this has a lease until 2060, long-term lease. This one here and the parking structure has a lease for about 11 years. And we still own the land. And so that's leased by a private developer. And so when we looked at Clean Slate, we said, well, probably not going to be able to do much with this here, but perhaps maybe in a future phase we can do something here. And what happens if we look at the whole campus and open it up and try to accomplish all of those goals that we were hearing from the community, as well as the project pillars that the board has? And so what it looks like when you do this, and this is a concept, this is a master plan, we're going to be working on design. In the future, we're going to be going through the environmental impact review process. But the concept that we're looking at is what happens if you open it up. And we're going to go through and we're going to talk about all of these components, but you're looking from the same angle here. And obviously, we're really trying to create usable open space. And you'll see that you can walk through here, and we'll walk you through this so that you can get a better understanding of how this is configured. So this is another view. We wanted to take a look from Barrel and Flagler. And so this is what we have today, of course. And then if you put the proposed or possible master plan over this, it then looks like this. And so we have the architect here. He's here to talk about some of the different ideas and concepts, and Paul can jump in. But you can see where we used to have a 6 to 7 story parking structure here, we're saying we think that this should be the Child Development Center, and we'll show you the park in a moment. But we think to create that connection to the community, that you should have this child connection here to really signal that this is intergenerational and for everybody. We think a statement needs to be made right here that this is intergenerational. You can see that you can walk through here so that you don't have a block or a wall, but you're actually able to walk through and access the site. I don't know, Paul, is there anything that you'd like to add here?
Well, I think one of the things that we heard was the importance of connecting to the community with the site. And I think this view shows a very strong gesture in that regard. By opening the corner up here and creating a little plaza at the corner that will connect to the park, by having this large public staircase here, as well as an elevator here, you literally have physical connections up to the main garden level of the site. So I think besides the programs that are connections to the community, we also very much wanted in the planning to allow this sort of public space continuity. And that's why this is raised at this corner, to allow people to walk through here, as well as from the heart of the site to be able to look out at the views that are really quite special from the site. It's hard looking at all the parking, pavement, and the garages right now and seeing how really beautiful a site it is. And so this is meant to provide housing around the perimeter that's a lower building mass than what we were looking at before. And then all of these housing units have really quite beautiful views out from the hilltop. And then to keep the garden view in the center, also we lifted this up to allow for views out from the central space. And so it's very much about kind of turning the site that we have now inside out, both in terms of making it green instead of paved. All of the parking is underneath here, as well as within the housing over here. So that green space is really replacing paved space in terms of what's usable on the ground. And then really creating the heart of it in the wellness pavilion that's cradled by the housing around it, creating this sort of sense of community in the heart of the park.
So let's talk a little bit about exactly what the components are so that people can understand where everything would be going. So this would be the Community Wellness Pavilion, and we'll talk about what that is and what that means, and what type of uses would be in there. I think some of you that were involved in the study circles will see some of those uses come alive here when we show you some of the things that could go in here. So there's an estimated 420 residential care units, and we'll talk about how this compares to the prior concept plan that you saw a year ago. So we'll show you a comparison of that. So the new Center for Health and Fitness, I'm going to try to use the laser again, is right here. We wanted to bring it into the campus. Before it was out here. There was concern from some of the Torrance neighbors that this would create more traffic coming into their neighborhood and that people would try to come up from here. So we heard you. We are recommending that we move that into the center of the campus for a lot of reasons. Access for everybody, but it would be in here. The medical office building would remain. We want there to be opportunity for medical services on campus. We think that's a benefit for people that live here and want to come visit here, that they would be able to access and continue to access medical services, so we would have those on campus. And we really wanted to activate the green space. That's something that we heard over and over, is that we want usable green space in a place where we can come to experience health and open space. We want that to be a huge part of what you all are doing. Bike and pedestrian path, and so we are continuing to talk about that. We want to create a bike and pedestrian path here and connect that to Diamond, and we'll show you quickly what that looks like in a moment. Child Development Center would be down on the corner. And that we would then look to optimize the vehicle and traffic flow here, and then with a new entrance here. And you can see this big entrance here that we anticipate in the next 50 years that there's going to continue to be a commitment to shared ride transportation, and so we wanted to create a large area here. It's a little hard to get some context, but create a very large area here for whether it be transit drop-off or shared ride drop-off. So when we heard you a year ago and started to hear, hey, it's not connected to the community and not connected to the neighborhood, we looked at this drawing and, we always knew that there was a park here, but I never understood that it created an hourglass. And so the concept was, well, how can we connect this and really have this be a larger part of Redondo? And so there's the park. There's the SCE right-of-way that the city of Redondo Beach is looking at trying to connect down here, potentially with something at the AES site. And so you really have this loop that could be created where if we build this connection here and then you have a bike connection down Diamond, you now have this loop of which the Beach Cities Health District parcel is a key part of. So it just gives you some broader context of what this project could mean within Redondo, but also the region. So let's quickly go through here and look at, okay, what would be happening in the Wellness Pavilion? What does that look like? So we think that, and what we've heard from you and what we've heard from the community, is more opportunities for places to meet, to whether it be a TED Talk or summits, have a facility that could hold 150 people and be a place where people could meet. A demonstration kitchen to pursue one of our top priorities as it relates to nutrition. And again, this is just some ideas of showing how it will connect to the outside. Flexible community meeting spaces where people could come and, if you're sitting in this seat right here, sure, you're in a meeting, but I'd argue that you're healthier because you're able to walk outside, you're able to get some steps, you're able to take a breath of fresh air. It's a little different than this room, which is, across the hall from the old morgue. So it's a little different. Rooftops, we want to utilize the rooftops. I think our views are going to be better. from the rooftops. I think those of you that have been here a long time know that. And so we think we're going to be able to really emphasize that. And again, create a place where people can come and experience what community health and wellness looks like. Blue Zones Cafe, again, just thinking about ways in which we could encourage people to come here and be healthy. We have a lot of partners, of course, over 120 Blue Zones restaurants, and so we think there's an opportunity to partner with them and bring them here as a way to encourage people to come here for a quick lunch, quick healthy lunch, and experience the campus. Creating a place where people can learn about community health and actually experience it. Then, of course, the active green space up in the top left-hand corner, of course, is Zumba in the park that we do in Redondo. We would envision that happening on campus here and happening as part of our campus. So we're in the process of medically certifying the Center for Health and Fitness. So we're sitting for that exam, if you will, later this month. That's something that's in process. And so part of this project is an expanded Center for Health and Fitness. So you saw that in the site plan in the center of the project. And included in that, in the site plan, included in the concept is space for a warm water therapy pool. That's something that we've heard for years and think that that would be something that would be of benefit, but it would be medically based. It would be a therapy pool. It would not be a recreational pool. So Carrie Ann's going to talk a little bit more about us breaking the mold of residential care.
Thank you. Carrie Ann Lawson, Chief Programs Officer for the Beach Cities Health District. And I want to just talk a little bit about why our concept for residential care for the elderly is a little bit different than what you might have in mind. Many places that provide this type of care for older adults call it a community. But what they mean by that is an insular community that takes place within the walls. It's often insulated from the community at large. If they have outdoor space, it's inside the walls of the community. Maybe it's a patio. It's a very small space. It's not accessible in the front. There's no front yard, if you will. And there are few opportunities for casual or spontaneous interactions. All programming is brought into the facility, and they do an excellent job with an activities calendar and regular things coming in, and they try to bring a wealth of enrichment and stimulating activities, music programs, kids programs, but it all has to come in. There's no spontaneous interaction. I broke it. Okay, sorry. And then the programming is then specifically for the residents who live there. It doesn't include the broader community unless you happen to be part of the group who's bringing in the program. And the environment tends to be static. It's closed. It's a little bit removed. And one of the criticisms you hear, or one of the fears you hear about this type of a place, is being put there, being isolated there. What we have in mind is really a vibrant, multi-use community campus that includes that residential care for the elderly. And that means that residents on this site will be uniquely integrated into a broader community of life that is happening here outside their door. The green spaces and gathering spaces are there to promote activities, socialization, and wellness. You may know that there are already 120 people who live in this building in Silverado. When they want to experience the outdoors here, if families want to take them on a walk, they're pushing wheelchairs to the parking lot. This concept provides for a broader space, a safer space where you're not driving cars, an opportunity for people to have the sensory stimulation of nature, and a place where families can feel confident about bringing young children who may be intimidated by a clinical facility setting to play in green space. And it would be a true community center. With the Wellness Pavilion, we can have all sorts of activities that residents can participate in, whether they're a resident of this property or they're a resident of the broader community. So there's more opportunity for integration. and an opportunity to age in place in an adaptable setting. You know, I believe really strongly as a social worker that people have the right to the least restrictive environment possible. And so in creating this, we're really giving an opportunity to integrate folks to community program, to not isolate them, to not have them siloed over here and programming over here and children over there, but really integrate everything onto one property. And the beauty of that is that if you are on the low end of the spectrum of needing care and you can participate, there's a wealth of things to participate in. If you need assistance accessing those services, there's assistance to access those services and activities. And if you're frail and infirm and can just watch out the window, there's going to be so many cool things to watch. Really a vibrant, lifelike community happening outside your front door. So Tom, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. So we wanted to just show what we're seeing as far as some of the differences between the original site plan that we had roughly a year ago and the master plan. So we're just going to do a little comparison of some of the differences that we have here. And again, we're just starting, and so these are things that we're going to need to get into the details of, but we wanted to provide a high-level sort of summary of those. So where we had 6 to 7 stories previously, we're now at 4 stories. So the height has come down from the site plan to the master plan that we're presenting today. Square footage has come down roughly 100,000 square feet. The number of units has come down from 460 to 420. Previously, there was not the concept of a wellness pavilion. We were looking at upgrading this building and doing something with this building. We now have this community wellness pavilion where you saw some of the uses that could occur in there. Under both scenarios, we were looking at a modernized center for health and fitness, and so we have that in both. Limited green space, far more active and usable green space under the master plan. And then we have a 60-year-old former hospital site versus an innovative, preventative health campus that reflects who we are. We were estimating, we hadn't done traffic studies on the site plan, but we were estimating that there would be more trips because we would have the vehicle trips, because we would have the existing traffic that we have today, plus adding the residential care for the elderly. So we've done a preliminary trip analysis, and we are showing with this plan that there will be fewer vehicle trips than the current campus. So not compared to the site plan we had a year ago, but we are estimating fewer vehicle trips than the current campus, and we'll have that study available. The board has received that here tonight, and again, we're going to be doing a lot more with traffic. Remember, we got the whole EIR process coming, but a preliminary trip count showed that there would be fewer vehicle trips than the current campus. Well, we have the study, and so we'll have that available to you, and you're welcome to read the study. And again, it's a trip estimate. It's not a full-blown traffic study. That'll be done as part of the EIR. But as we were proceeding forward and giving the community and the board information to make a decision about whether or not to start the application process, we wanted to do some preliminary traffic estimates, and so that's what we have.
Based on the projected usage.
Correct. So we showed this to the community working group last week. We went to them with, here are the pillars. These are our guiding principles. We asked them lots of questions, and you'll see in your packet as well as online, we asked them all kinds of questions. We had 8 to 12 different questions. So those are all available online. We didn't want to take up too much time with that, so we just kind of went to the big one that we asked the community working group, which was, does the master plan optimally accomplish all or the majority of the Healthy Living Campus project pillars and principles? And so from that group of 15 people, we saw that 93% said yes, it did optimally address that. And that's what we were shooting for. We were wanting to make sure that we were optimally addressing the policy parameters that the board had set. One more. So here they are. And so what we'd like to do now, board, it's obviously up to you, but I think there are some people that would like to speak and provide input. And our thought,
Is that it?
that's the presentation. We can go back and look at components or bring slides up, but what we thought we would do is give the public an opportunity to provide input and comment to you. Even though this is a study session, we do want to hear from the public, and then we would have a discussion with you, and then after we get that input, then we can maybe talk about what's next, and if we're ready to start talking about financing and phasing, or maybe we want to take more time and talk about this more. That's obviously up to the board. So with that, Dr. Chun, if you want to go with public input, that's what we would recommend.
Okay. Yeah, I have a note here from Jeff Gilbert, who wants to address the board. So if you just come up to the podium. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeff Gilbert. I'm a part of the working committee, the community working committee, and a resident on Diamond Street. I've been out of town, so just recently was able to see the new design, and it seems to have taken a look at some of our issues, which was the plan to turn Diamond Street into a access road and take away our green space, all of our green space, the buffer zone that we have. I looked at the pictures, and they appear to be nicer, but the building is a lot bigger than I had originally thought it would be. I don't know how much green space we actually have now compared to our green space, not the facilities green space, the buffer zone that we have. Currently, we look out and we see trees. The building is backed off a little bit, so from our home, we see very few of the building. And if they're going to be building a 4-story site right next to our home, we're going to have this big, huge, could very possibly have a much, much larger building right out in front of our home. And that would certainly impact the people that live on Diamond Street. So the pictures are relatively, for my consideration, very vague. They do not show a representation of how this building will look from the street level. We see a downward image, we see computer graphics from afar, but it doesn't really show what this building appears to for the people that actually live around the area. And that makes me very, very concerned. There's also talk that I just saw now about making Diamond Street some kind of a connection to this loop between the parks and stuff, and we really don't need any more traffic on Diamond Street at all.
Sir, Diamond Street's not going to be connected as a driving path. It's not a street. It's a bike path.
It is
for
currently
bicycles.
right now. I mean, it's a path right
That's
there.
what it's going to be. We're not going to drive cars down it, period.
Well, I'm kind of wondering why the emphasis is on a bike path right now when...
There is a
in-
bike path now. The idea
Right.
is to upgrade it and
by-
make it nicer, to apply for funds to upgrade it. It's all part of the plan.
Okay, now,
learn
is
about
that,
it in
are
the
you
working
working with
group.
Torrance as well?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes, we
I
are.
see, okay. Okay, all right, so that is a concern. When you talk about 400 units, how many people are we talking about?
This is all hypothetical. I mean, it's just a beginning plan. We don't really know.
see.
It'll be fleshed out in the working group as they work through the plans through the time.
Okay, and then from the beginning, I asked, is there a business plan to this? or there's a marketing plan, but is there a business plan? And is that available on the website?
And that's what we're going to be coming back in February with the discussion on the finances and the business plan and how the projections fit into the long-range plan, financial plan that we showed at the beginning of this presentation.
Okay.
Okay, finally, I see an awful lot of emphasis on the community working and stuff, but there seems to be a digression of input on the main focus of this, which is the residential care unit. There's a lot less emphasis on this than ever before, and yet it seems to me that most of this building project will be devoted for that residential care, but it seems to be pushed aside.
That will be worked out over the course of time. The next comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next comment is from Bob Pinsler. Pinsler, sorry.
And everybody has 3 minutes.
The Great Wall of Redondo. The reason I got involved with some of the circles was that the impression that I got was there was a search, as it says there, for a center of excellence. What has come out of this process is the stacking of people. There is no center of excellence involved in this. There's no research. There's no sense of doing something that other people don't do. You are a public agency. Your job is not to do what the private sector does. And in Redondo Beach, it does a lot. In fact, at some point, the people of the city of Redondo Beach ought to change its motto in terms of people coming to the border saying, "Welcome to God's waiting room." I think that what we have here is a lack of true thought about what this property could be. It could be a place where research is done. It could be a place where the thought about how to deal with aging can be dealt with. What you have here is a property that has been misused over time. You have an agency that has reinvented itself now, trying for the second time, because it doesn't do what the community needs. I think that what you need to do is to go back to think about what this impressive piece of land can be in terms of delivering those kinds of results, not just stacking people. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yes. Next person to speak is Pat Ost.
Good evening. I'm Pat Ost. I'm a 70-year resident of within 1 mile of this campus. I went to work for the city of Redondo Beach 50 years ago next week. So I've been intimately involved in this and watched this whole area transcend into where it is today. If anybody's interested in what the pictures look like of this and what was here before the hospital was built and then the 10 to 15 years after it, I can show you the effect they had. For me, what the effect that this hospital had on the 3 beach cities was, a lot of people don't know. When we say Beach Cities Health District, what it is, how it happened. How it happened is the 3 beach cities got together in 1955 and formed a hospital district, which is an entity, is a governmental agency within itself. And that's the hospital district, was to bring a hospital here. In 1955, when that happened, there was no hospital close to this area. There was Torrance Memorial Hospital, which was a very small Catholic hospital in the downtown Torrance. And downtown Torrance was nothing like it is today. There were no other hospitals. There was that one, and there was a sanitarium in Hermosa Beach that supplied some medical care. But my grandfather was the chief of surgery for Big County Hospital, and he had a house on the Esplanade, but he had to live in L.A. to go to work. So he came here to fish on the pier. So doctors had no real place to treat people. They built a hospital in Inglewood. So in '55, they built this hospital. In 1970, they passed the Wedgworth-Townsend Act in the state of California, which changed the whole complexity of the fire department. I started on the fire department in 1970. In 1970, the Wedgworth-Townsend Act gave, by law, the right to and the ways to supply paramedic services. This was the first base station hospital for paramedic services in the South Bay. And so this was the base station for Redondo Beach, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, Torrance. They had two bases, Harbor General and this hospital. So we had a whole lot of medical treatment here. I'm looking at Dr. Kim. He was the emergency room doctor in there. Dr. Richter is the one that started the program. We are the second oldest paramedic provider in the state of California because of this base station, the city of Redondo Beach. And so we've been doing it since 1971. So this is how this hospital district tried to keep up with treating the medical needs of the people of Redondo Beach. And it's grown and it's grown. We are no longer a hospital for one reason. And it's not because we didn't meet the earthquake standards. It's because we weren't ahead of the curve in building medical facilities for doctors' offices. They built them in Torrance near the Little Company of Mary and Torrance Memorial, and I'll try to wrap it up real quick. But all this has something to do with, and the doctors were mostly in Palos Verdes and Alpha in that area, and they didn't have offices by their homes. So when they could get office buildings built next to the hospitals, that's where their offices were. They put the patients in hospitals near their offices. And so, I was the fire chief for this city. I was on this board, and we have been trying to keep up with how this and address the concerns when we lost it. We got a lot of money by the hospital that was here paying us off, and that's where that money got put away. And today, this campus, from the first meetings we had, Mr. Backley, and set this, and the board set this group up, and now we've come leaps and bounds far forward. And the plan, as it's moving, addresses those concerns of how we're going to give medical treatment, and we need to have this, and it will address it. And it's come down from, like you said, 7 stories down into what I would like to call, it's a campus where people will come.
Thank you. Next one is Deanie Nelson.
Dency.
Dence?
Dency.
Oh, Dency Nelson, sorry.
Thank you, Vanessa.
You correct them saying my name all the time.
After 67 years, I'm used to it. Yes, Dency Nelson, and I think I'm going to begin pretty much like I did the last time I was here, because having some objection to my dear friend, Mr. Pinsler. I just have to react to the one statement he said. I don't see this at all as a stacking of people to come to die. On the contrary, I see it as a place to extend life in a healthy, happy way on this new campus, where there'll be interaction with people of all ages. I mean, how wonderful it is that the first phase of residence is right near the Child Development Center there at the corner of Beryl and Flagler. And then looking out onto the open space that all of the rest of us will be using to come and experience and learn some of the things that Mr. Pinsler referred to in terms of research that might be done. I don't see that as a good way to use this space as a building for research, but a place to disseminate the information that comes from Blue Zones, other places that have provided the research to come up with ways to keep us healthier through all of our years. So I'm really excited about what I've seen in the development as this thing has moved forward in terms of the physical campus itself, just the lifting of the buildings up with the open space underneath so that surrounding community feels welcome to come into it. The fact that all of the parking is going to be, as I understand understand it, 2 levels underground, even in phase 1, under that first row of building that is housing and the Center for Health and Fitness, and then later on in phase 3, where there will be parking with the rooftop over it eventually, and the ability to use that space on the roof. So I think we've come a long way talking about this, and for me, it's just a very exciting, again, place for us to come, no matter what our age, to feel healthy, to feel connected with the community, and then for those who will be in those residences, not stacked up to die, but again, to have a quality of life connected with all of the ages of the community, to stay healthy and vibrant for as long as they can. And I think that certainly is the mission of the Beach Cities Health District. And I'm excited seeing this thing move forward in the direction it is. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Next one is Eugene Solomon.
Good evening. My name is Eugene Solomon. I live here in Redondo Beach. I moved to the South Bay in 1985. I have a great deal of experience in the senior living communities. I've worked across the country with seniors in continuing care retirement communities, in memory care and assisted living and independent living, all across it. I would like to ask, I think this is a great improvement over the previous plan. I think that when you talk about senior living communities, if you are going to try and avoid the warehousing of people, to put it in a crude way, you want to have it where there are open spaces, windows, views, and vistas in order for them to be able to escape that isolation they might find in their rooms while they are occupying their residences. I think it'd be good to point out for members of the board and the community, when you bring it back and you start talking more about the financial aspects of it, talk about how much of the square footage is going to be associated with the residential care, how much of that square footage is going to be associated with some of these other concepts that you've introduced here tonight, and how that's going to interact with the financial solvency and capabilities of a location or a series of provider uses like you've described here tonight. And I think when you talk a little bit more about that, it'll enlighten or maybe enable us to have a more wholesome and fulsome view of exactly what the campus is going to do, how it's going to sustain itself, and how it's going to provide those benefits to the community and connect the community like you've described. But I will reiterate, I think this is an improved plan over the previous plan. How you're going to attract residents and how you're going to retain residents and bring people there as part of that business model, I also think will be interesting to hear. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is George Schmelzer. Just trying to be careful.
Thanks for the opportunity to address you. George Schmelzer from Hermosa Beach. I have to correct Pat. My son was born in St. Michael's Hospital in 1961, where the Sunrise is now, so there was some hospital care. I think he's my son. He was born in that hospital, and so at least that was there and has been there all since 61. I served on the city council in Hermosa Beach back in the way long ago, and so have been involved in the community for quite some time. I think this is a visionary project. I'm really proud to be part of this area, and you guys ought to be proud of yourself for taking this on. I hope it doesn't succumb to the not in my backyard mentality that's so apparent in the South Bay. It's a shame, really. And it's gotten beyond that. They say now it's bananas. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. And so hopefully we've moved beyond that. The plan has changed a lot. Well, first of all, I'd like to commend you for the outreach program that got many people involved in it. And that's clear from what the original proposal was to what it is now. I think it does all of the things that Tom said it would do, or at least it has the potential to do all of those things, as well as deliver the services that have been delivered all along and that we've come to expect and rely on. You can't build a huge project like this just on anecdotal evidence, but every one of us has a parent or a grandparent who has had to leave their community to move into assisted living or elderly care, away from their friends, away from their family. This resource here in the South Bay would give our residents of the South Bay at least an option that they don't have now. My wife spent over the last few years an hour and a half every day driving from Hermosa Beach down to El Toro, and by the time she would come back, she generally in tears by the time she got back here, and we estimated she was putting in 12 hours a week just driving to see her 95-year-old mother who just recently passed away, in a community that was very nice but very much like traditional community that you described. This will be an experiment in a way of trying to get the resources to combine, to be able to address elderly needs in a way that doesn't separate the elderly from the rest of the community. So I really commend you. I personally intend to do everything I can to see that it comes about and to keep Tom's feet to the fire and to make sure that we come up with a project that really works. And I was moved to that initially when I started talking to people a year and a half ago, I think it was now, about a project, and some people's response was, it's about time. And that's how I would end it. I think it's about time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Is there anyone else who'd like, from the public, who'd like to come up and speak? Yeah. Okay. When you go up to the podium, please state your name.
And your age.
My name is David Poster. Members of my family have been in Redondo since the 1950s, starting with my wife and her family. And my daughter has been active in the last 25 years. And I want to be number one on the list.
To move out of my house? Is that what you're saying?
And I have visited many of these other senior places, and I certainly would not find it necessary, I would not want to find it necessary to choose any one of those others. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Great. Okay.
Yes.
That's the public input part. We would like to have a discussion with you all. This is an opportunity for you to give your input and thoughts about the master plan that you've seen tonight and whether or not it meets your policy goals. And then we can, so my thought would be, or recommendation would be, you go ahead and do that, and then we can talk about next steps after that as a wrap up for this evening.
Well, I would like to commend staff and leadership and the working groups, everyone from the community that contributed to this evolving plan. I think that you've done a tremendous amount of work, and it looks very promising. And I think it conforms to the goals and objectives of the district. And you know, I just think that it's a very exciting project to be part of. So we'll see how things move forward, and it'll be very interesting to see what the business plan and the financials look like at our next meeting.
I'd like to see Carrie Ann's slide again. The one that references
Keep going.
the other kinds of facilities versus the kind of facility that we're trying to build here. There we go, yeah. I just think that's really, really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like to start with thanking every single person who is here today. I apologize for my voice. I'm drinking my hot ginger tea here. All of you have such passion for this community, and I deeply appreciate that people care and are involved and want to contribute, every single one of you. And I also want to commend the staff for really taking the time to reach out to every single person who has made a comment online, who's made a comment at meetings, to really encourage people to participate in this process and give us their feedback as we're developing this as you said, conceptual design. It's not an architectural plan yet. It's a conceptual design. I would like to say that I do feel that it optimally accomplishes many of the pillars, and how we put those pillars together and really thinking about our vision and what we want to accomplish in this community. And for me, the things that are most important that I really love about this particular concept is the active green space, really expanding how much green we have in our community. There's so few opportunities to have more parks, and this is a way to build more park-like space in our community. And use gardens, farmers markets, community events, have it be someplace that people can come and be integrated into the community. I also, one of my things that wasn't mentioned at all tonight is that, especially recently with the fires and the ways that people have to come together as a community, that we need a place where people can go in an emergency that is safe and that has access to different facilities. And this will be that place. It will be big, and it will have room, and we will be able to congregate here when we need to as a community to support each other in whatever kinds of emergencies come up in the future. Also, the concept that this is a transit hub. We are very central to this Beach Cities community, and there's going to be less and less cars, individual cars in the future, and more reliance on public transportation and shared rides, and building a facility that meets those needs without thinking about that future, without knowing what that future is actually going to look like, and really preparing for it now. The other thing I want to point out is we have so many research projects that we're doing right now that are really very valuable. What we do with the Blue Zones project in this community is hands-on research in how we can impact people's lives with some very simple concepts. And we're doing that. We see that with the obesity rates going down and the people eating more fruits and vegetables going up and reducing the cost of medical care. But then also we're doing our Healthy Minds research. And this will provide a huge opportunity to provide a hands-on way, not to do the research as much as to implement the results that we are finding already in a place that supports that and creates a future that builds on those Blue Zones concepts in our community. So I'm really proud of what the staff has come together, and I'm really proud of our community for being part of this, all of you, every single person, and all of your opinions. You're very important to what we're doing here, and we want your input. And thank you so much for coming tonight.
Yeah, one thing I have to say about the architectural plan is I'm very impressed at how much green space there is. I mean, the site is 11 acres. It has to be 5 or 6 acres of green. I mean, it's unbelievable how much green space you're able to put in.
Yeah,
there.
it would be nice
because
to
right
have
now
that.
we have about 5 or 6 acres of asphalt.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a parking lot, and we're turning it
it's
into
a
green
gigantic
space.
parking lot on a hill is what it is. The footprint of the parking lot is far bigger than the buildings.
Well, thank you, everyone. And as my colleagues have stated, the way this works is when community comes together. And I think that kudos to the Beach Cities staff and Tom and to the community for working together and watching this plan evolve. If those of you recall when we were down at the old aviation high school, I forget what's called Redondo Beach Performing Arts, it was a very different feel, a very different vibe. I think we've come a long way. I do like the term that this is a visionary project, and I think that this is about community-based research. We are already engaged in that through the Blue Zones. We are engaged with that through Healthy Minds, and there's going to be a lot more research needed because right now, a lot of what we call precision medicine and genetic medicine, that's going to be bench research, and that's going to be implemented in our communities in many different ways. But likewise, what we've learned through Blue Zones and what we're learning already through Healthy Minds, we have so much opportunity here, and I think that the design personally is breathtaking. It is simply breathtaking. I do say this, that as things evolve, those are going to be based on financials and the marketing plans. Those are going to be key, and input is going to be required from everyone to continue on this, because it's like building a brand new home for yourself. You can start off with your budget, and all of a sudden you've gone from 300,000 to 400,000 to $1 million, 20 million, whatever it is. But it's got to be visionary, and it's got to be thinking about the future. And I think that the assisted or residential living is going to be very key. And I think the design is absolutely spectacular. So thank you very much.
So I'd like to start by giving some credit to the old plan. I think what's amazing about it is there's a lot of work put into it. But what the old plan did is it elicited the right conversations. And that conversation that came out of the concerns around the old plan is what has led to us to what we have today. So I want to thank the community, the staff, the leadership, the consultants, the architects involved, to really take all of that input that came in on the old plan and turn it into something just absolutely magnificent. This new plan is thoughtful, it's considerate, it takes into account all of the needs we've been bringing up and hearing from the community. It takes into account the financial concerns we had about the original plan. It's thinking about how do we remain solvent as a district, how do we continue to be successful as a district, and it also encapsulates architecturally beautifully our vision of who we are. It really literally is a physical manifestation of our mission, which is incredible to see. I'm really proud of what has been created here. And I think that this is something that is going to service our community very well and service multiple generations. We've really taken the idea of intergenerational community into account in this design. And I love the heartbeat, because the center of it is literally the pulsating heartbeat that breathes life and flow into the entire community of Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, and Redondo Beach. And like it is, that heartbeat is at the center of the choke point of Redondo Beach. So it's really beautiful. And I also know, as Carrie Ann, you mentioned, the way that senior housing integrates with the community. My mother lives just upstairs, and so I like to take her out to eat, and I want to kind of show her what's happening around the community. And so I go upstairs and I wheel her out in the wheelchair, and I come downstairs, and then I've got to navigate the parking lot, and nobody ever sees us, and I'm sort of trying to meander the wheelchair in and out of rushing cars, and then I'm on a really busy street, and just to go anywhere, there's really no sort of comfortable gathering place. To take her to Dominguez Park is a project. Whereas with this design, I feel like any resident who lives here and who has family nearby can come and visit, an easy visit, take them downstairs and sort of enjoy interaction with other generations and green space. So it's really beautifully well thought. And I think that tonight, we really we're really participating in history. I thank all of you for your comments, the passionate comments from both sides. Whether you support this project or not, your input is helping us. It's helping us understand what we need to address and what we need to improve. So I thank you for that, and I think this is the beginning of a beautiful legacy for the Beach Cities Health District.
My turn. I guess you cannot hear thanks enough, so I will also repeat that as well to all those who've participated, staff and community. Several times I've had people come up to me and say, well, you had some people and they all wanted to talk about it, and did it really stop you? And I say, no, it didn't stop it. It made it better. Kind of what Vish was just saying. If you realize what we did, we totally took an idea that was the original building with the original offices. That's how we make our money. We have to make money to support the programs that we provide. And so we've totally changed that. We are now saying the money-making entity will be the assisted living, without all the other things. We still have our other properties that we will make money. So we totally changed, and that's because we were slowed down. We were slowed down to look to see, well, look, we're losing this tenant, we're losing that tenant. Well, look at all the medical spaces that are all over town. Why would somebody want to come to a 60-year-old building instead of go to some of the newer spaces? So all of that, I think, helped greatly for us to take a serious new global look to see what exactly was going to be possible. I have a question for you, and it may be that it's better discussed next time. Is it a good idea to discuss how we're going to phase in this project at this point, or do you want to do it next time when we talk about finances?
So when you all are done, we're going to show the phasing slide as kind of a
Oh, okay.
progression
Okay, so
to
good
next
segue
time.
then.
So good segue.
Go on to the phasing of the project.
It'll take me a second to get there. So, per the segue. So when and again, our plan is, this is more of the how, but we did want to show it because I think there'll be questions about how it'll all work. But as was talked about from some of the comment, the thought would be to build, I guess that's green or yellow there, these pieces first. So this is the Center for Health and Fitness. What we heard loud and clear from our outreach was it's about the Center for Health and Fitness, and so we would want to keep this building operating. You can see the old hospital building here. So we would want to keep this operating while we build the Center for Health and Fitness. We also need some income for the property as well as meeting the need for the older adults. And so we would build some of the residential care here. And then we would also then build the Child Development Center here, and that would be income producing. And then, so this would be the first phase. Again, this all has to go through an EIR. And, you know, I think we're all used to big development projects. This would be like a scoping meeting, right? Well, we haven't even started the EIR process because we're a public agency. You all wanted to make that commitment to have this level of
bringing in the community,
to bringing in the
before we
community
even do
up
that.
front.
Yeah.
And so, again, all of this phasing is going to be talked about as part of the EIR process. But then just what would happen is we would then start to move this direction. This building here is an interesting building. This is the mechanical plant that runs this building. And so that was one of the issues that we were running into when we were looking at different scenarios, is you can't operate this building without this building. And so at some point, there's going to need to be a decision made about, okay, is it time to close this building, or are there ways to maybe mothball parts of it? Those will all be things that we'll talk about, which comes back to the seismic issue of what is a time frame within which you would want to address the seismic issues. And then once this was built, then we would then build the final phase here. And right now, the wellness pavilion, or this center here, right now this is tied to this for two reasons. One, well, there may be more than two. There's this building here, right, which is on a longer term lease. So this lease is not up for 11 years. And from a financing standpoint, and we'll get into this more next month, but we're going to need the income from these units. And again, we think that it obviously provides income, but also meets a need, as we discussed. We're going to need the income to build this. And then this is parking inside here, and you have the units around the edges for the views. But in order to operate this building here, you would need to have the parking. And so this would be, you know, in a later phase, the parking for this building would be underneath here and would be covered here. So long story short, again, we're going to get into this next month. We would look at a phase here. Hard to, everybody's going to say, what's the time frame? Hard to know for sure, but
at least 11 years.
Roughly in the 3 to 5 year range here. And then this, we would not be able, as it stands right now, to be able to do anything here for 11 years. And then we would try to move this while still keeping this building operating for revenue, but then that's going to come back to you all as far as at what point are we no longer comfortable with this building being open if it doesn't meet seismic standards. So that'll all be part of the trade-off. And that's really where this is going next, is a trade-off discussion about timing and funding and desires. So this is what's next. We have the financials next month. We'll talk about the phasing. We'll take the input that we heard. I thought it was great input regarding additional information that can be included for next time. And then we're going to have the open houses. We're going to take this show on the road, really starting next month, and really getting out in the community. We're looking at different types of open houses. Perhaps we'll do one here on site so that people can come and experience it and get a sense for what we're talking about by having it here. Just an idea. We'll
Get a
talk about.
sense of the scope in terms of the parking lot, where the green space would
well,
be, where the building.
and that's something that we can talk about more next time and get your input on that. And that's it.
Yeah, we did that already.
Okay, good.
Looks like Pat has a.
Microphone.
No, with the microphone. We
You're not going to make you stand at the party.
I just have a couple of comments for all of you, and I'm so happy there's such a big group hearing this exciting presentation. The thing I see, having started with some of this, is we're outside the box big time. We're in curves and circles and things that flow, not things that you go bump in the night in a square building. So I am so excited about it. Thank you very much.
We want you to be there for the open house.
Yes.
But we want you to be there when we open the doors.
So unless there's more comment from the board, that concludes our study session. We have time for a little break, and then we'll start the regular meeting at 6:30.